Hi, I'm Carissa from Three Bridges Yoga, and today I'll be taking you through the upward facing dog pose. Poses like upward facing dog are critical for a healthy back, especially since so many of our daily activities induce a forward folding of the torso. Whether you're driving in your car, sitting at your desk, or working on one of your handheld devices, it's likely that you're overstretching the muscles in your back body, weakening your abdominals, and shortening the muscles on the front side of the body. So a regular practice of upward facing dog can help to improve your posture by bringing some balance back into your spine. So upward facing dog pose works to strengthen the muscles of the back body, as well as the arms and the wrists. It stretches the front of the body, so your anterior shoulders, your chest, your lungs, and your abdominals. It's a great pose for stimulating your abdominal organs, and also a great pose for increasing your lung capacity, which will help you to breathe better. Now, despite its benefits, it's important to note that if you have a history of or currently suffer from carpal tunnel syndrome, if you're in the late stage of pregnancy, or if you have had any serious back or disc injuries, that it's best to avoid this pose. So let's start by reviewing the mechanics of the upward facing dog. So upward facing dog is a back bending posture, and back bends are also referred to as heart openers, and that's because we're opening up the space that surrounds the heart. If you think about what sits behind the heart, it's the thoracic curve. Okay, the curve here moves outward away from the body, so it has some natural spinal flexion to it. And in addition, 10 of the 12 vertebrae that create this curve actually attach to ribs. So that means that this part of your spine is going to be a lot more rigid and less flexible than, say, the neck or the low back. So there are 4 curves of the spine. You have the curve here at the neck that moves inward, and this has some natural spinal extension to it, so it's a concave curve, also called lordotic. The curve, as we discussed at the mid-back, which is known as kyphotic, since it moves out away from the body, a slight spinal flexion. And then at the low back, you have the lumbar curve. So just like the neck, you have natural spinal extension in this area of the spine already. And then we also have a sacral curve, and that curve moves outward away from the body, so it's referred to as kyphotic. So you can see then that when moving into a back bend, because spinal extension is involved, that it would be really easy to take the path of least resistance by overextending in the neck, overextending in the low back, or overextending in both. So because we want to create a back bend that's more balanced, having all areas of the spine participate equally, we're going to really want to put some additional focus here on the thoracic portion of the spine, so the area that sits right behind the chest. So let's start with some preparatory poses that can help you to feel that sort of thoracic opening. The first one's going to be cow pose. So come into a tabletop position, stacking shoulders over wrists and hips over knees. Okay, you'll start with your spine in a neutral position. Now, a common cue to move into this pose is to drop the belly and to lift the chin and lift the tail. So just these cues alone will create compression through the cervical spine, so compression at the neck and compression at the low back. To get a more balanced spinal extension here, we want to really pull the heart center forward. So by initiating that movement from the thoracic area of the spine, you create more space at both the neck and the low back. And go ahead and return back into a neutral spine. And let's take that with the breath 3 times. So on your inhale, roll your chest forward. Send the tops of your shoulders back, chin out and tail back. Exhale, coming back just to a neutral spine. One more time, inhale, roll the chest forward. Send the shoulders back away from the ears. Reach your chin forward and your tail back. And exhale, return back into a neutral spine. And then send your hips back to your heels, just taking child's pose for a moment. Now, cow pose is usually done in conjunction with cat pose. So that's working both the extension and flexion action of the spine. But because today we're working on thoracic opening, we're going to omit the cat pose and just really continue to work on that spinal extension. So the next preparatory pose will be cobra pose. So come down onto your belly. And untuck your toes, so you should feel the tops of your feet press down into the mat. Place your hands right underneath your shoulders so they're right beside your upper ribs. And you can let your forehead rest down. So start to firm your thighs and try to pull your kneecaps right up off the mat. Your tailbone will continue to lengthen downward. And then with an inhale, lift your sternum up and start to lengthen it forward. Now, really important here, keeping the head in line with the spine. So rather than craning the head back and hardening the front of the throat or dropping the head down, you want to keep the ears right in line with your shoulders. Now, energetically, you want to feel as though your palms are pulling back. So almost like you're on a skateboard and you're trying to propel your body forward. Take a breath in, and then exhale, wave your spine down. With your inhale, rise back up into your cobra, really feeling the muscles in the back body do the work of lifting. Exhale and wave your spine down. Inhale, rise up one more time. And now it's important to note here, a common misalignment in the pose is for people to want to straighten their arms. So when you straighten your arms in this position with the shoulders back behind your wrists, you're sitting into your lower back and you're compressing into that lumbar curve. So it's really important that you keep a bend in the elbows and you only lift your body so far in that you can keep your tailbone dropping down towards the floor. So you don't want to feel any compression in your lower back. Essentially, you should be able to float your hands up off the mat without the extension in the spine changing. With an exhale, release it down and press yourself back into child's pose. Now, the name itself, upward facing dog, would imply that when you're in this pose, your face is up to the sky. And the name alone will cause a lot of students to want to drop their head back, again, compressing in that cervical curve rather than maintaining a natural extension. So for today, as we move into the upward facing dog pose, we'll actually refer to this pose as the forward facing dog. So hopefully the forward facing dog will allow you to maintain a posture in which your eye gaze stays level, your face stays forward, chin parallel to the floor, and ears directly over the shoulders. So the first variation of the forward-facing dog that we'll do will involve your blocks. So come down onto your belly just like you did in cobra pose. But this time, slide your hands or your blocks so they're right beside your lower ribs. So in this starting position, your elbows will actually stack over your wrists. Lift the heads of the shoulders up and back so your upper arms run parallel to the floor. Again, the head is in line with the spine. Press the tops of your feet down, firm your thighs, and pull your kneecaps up off the floor. Now you still have that same pulling action with the palms, but this time start to press your hands down into the mat. With an inhale, pressing into your hands and your feet, lift your body up away from the floor. So in this position, your eye gaze is forward, ears stack over shoulders, crown of the head lifts up, tailbone's lengthening down, thighs are firm, and tops of the feet and hands pressing down into the surface. Take another breath in, and then on your exhale, drop your knees and press your hips back towards your heels. For the full expression of our forward-facing dog pose, take your blocks off to the side and come back down onto your belly. Sliding your hands back, again, so they sit right at your lower ribs. The elbows stack directly over the wrists. Lift the heads of your shoulders up and pull them back. So you want to feel your shoulder blades firm down into your back body. Energize your thighs, pressing down through the tops of the feet. Lift your kneecaps away from the floor. On an inhale, push your hands and your feet down. Lift your body up. So when you lift up, you should have your shoulders directly over your wrists. If they're not, then use your feet to adjust. So either walk your feet closer or walk your feet back. But it's important to note here that if your shoulders are too far forward over your wrists, you're likely going to start to cave your chest inward. So if your shoulders are too far back behind your wrist, note again you're sitting into your lower back, just like in that cobra variation. Okay, so stack your shoulders right on top of your wrists. And then if your shoulders start to sag, or you start to get into sort of this hunched position, then let your focus be on lifting your sternum and your rib cage up. If that's still too much, lower your body all the way down and come back into your cobra. So continue to build strength. On an exhale, lower down. And very easily and leisurely press your hips back towards your heels. So now, because forward facing dog is part of the sun salutation, it's likely to show up a lot during a vinyasa yoga class. Within the context of the vinyasa, forward facing dog is typically only held for one breath in. So it's not a lot of time to fully feel everything that's happening in the pose, especially if you're not familiar with it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the vinyasa. So start by setting up for your downward facing dog. Arms extend forward, spread your fingers, tuck your toes and lift your hips. With an inhale, come forward to a high plank. And now with an exhale, you want to shift your body forward so you're coming right onto the tips of your toes and then bending your elbows from there. So as you come into your chaturanga, you should have your elbows in line with your wrists. Just as you did, inhale, push the tops of your feet and your hands into the mat, coming to your forward facing dog. And then tuck the toes, lift from your belly, back into downward facing dog. Another option here would be to drop your knees. So you can come forward to your high plank pose, drop your knees, and untuck your toes. With your exhale, lower halfway down. And then with your inhale, push into the tops of your feet, into your hands, and lift your body up. Again, making any adjustments in order to properly stack your shoulders over your wrists. Remember to keep your eye gaze forward, natural extension through the neck, tailbone drawing down to keep your lower back spacious. Take another breath in, and on your exhale, tuck your toes, lift with your belly back into downward facing dog. So we would like to give credit to David Vendetti of South Boston Yoga for introducing our studio to the concept of forward-facing dog. We truly believe that with insights like his, in addition to basic alignment principles, that we will be able to provide a practice to you that is safe, effective, and most importantly, one that's sustainable. So thanks for watching. Namaste.